passion and pageantry of college football lives here. This is the Paul Finebaum Show, Hour 2 podcast.
This might be college football heaven.
These things happen as we say hello to you for the second hour. A comment or an article by Ari Wasserman was put out a couple of weeks ago. Our caller, Brad from Macon, reacted, and it's been building, and sometimes you just have to settle these things once and for all, and that's where we are today. You saw the poster that On3 put out earlier today to promote it, so let me introduce our two good friends.
Feels good.
On one side,
feels right.
We have Brad from Macon, dressed in his red and black, and the man in the middle is Ari Wasserman. Gentlemen, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Paul and Ari Wasserman. I'm going to tell you something. That smoke you blowing about trying to make a name for yourself at the expense of Paul Finebaum, the Godfather.
Oh, hold on. We haven't even, let me interrupt. Hey, Brad, slow down. We haven't started the match yet. Well, by the way, that was Randy who's scoring the match. Gave you a couple of points for that, even though we haven't started yet. We got Brad and Ari, and I mean, are there any rules, by the way? Have you guys agreed to anything, or is this just a?
Hell no. This ain't no rules. There ain't no fair fights.
I came onto the show specifically to challenge Brad on one specific thing, and I can't wait to do that. But the thing that I wanted to say is it's good to be here. Happy to be live from Big Ten Central, Dallas, Texas. And it's good to be here. But yeah, I'm ready to go. Okay. We don't need any clean rules.
My whole problem with you, Ari, is that you call Paul an existential threat to college football. And the way we see it down here, you're the existential threat with college football, trying to get teams in this playoff and writing about teams that have no strength of schedule. They have no recruiting. All three teams we're talking about are in the 60s and the 70s in recruiting. They don't have the players. They don't have the money. They don't have the facilities. And so you're trying to put them in there. And I'm sorry. If you want a Georgia TCU over and over and over again, that's what you're going to get. And down here, that smoke ain't going to float.
First of all, Paul, I don't even know if we ever talked about this, but I never said that you as a human being are an existential threat. I thought that your point of view in that moment was. So I don't know if that's the way that people took that, but that's not what I wrote. Second of all, I'm not trying to put anybody in. I don't work for the committee, and I don't care who they put in. I'm trying to be fair and equitable to the entire sport because there is more to college football than just the SEC teams. So the question that I have for you, because you called in after I made my appearance on Paul's show, discussing why they had to and would put those teams in that you don't like.
No, it's not that I don't like them. They're not good enough to be there.
Okay, so then let me ask you this, Brad, respectfully. Do you think the committee operated in a poor way? Do you think they were negligent? And if you do, what do you think the solution to that problem is? What should they have done? Because I've been trying to get this answer from everybody, and I want to know what your rational thought is. Because it can't now, especially with the results, can't be put Alabama in. So if you don't want them, who did you want?
No, what I'm saying is this, Ari. I mean, the thing about it is, we all know there's only going to be 10 teams that's going to win this thing, and it's going to be the teams that recruit in the top 10. And I want teams, no matter how they do during the playoff, you have to sit there and punch your ticket to be in the playoff, to be in there. And the teams that you are sitting there writing about, that you are sitting there polling about, Indiana, come on, little tenor. They shouldn't even been in there. It's ridiculous. They don't have the athletes, to compete with the serious teams in the Big Ten and mostly the SEC. And I'm sorry, this ain't about unicorns and rainbows. So if you want to write stories about that, you need to start writing stories about children's books and not college football.
Yeah, well, that used to be my point of view because when the sport was set up that way 3 years ago, And actually, the only thing that did matter, Paul would be a pretty good testament to this, that I would have agreed with you. There were 4 or 5 teams coming into the season that could win a national title, and that has since been disproven, obviously. The thing that I wanted to ask you, though, and I'm going to ask it over and over and over again until you answer my question, is if you think the committee was negligent and didn't do the right thing, which was Paul's platform or discussion point at the time when there were blowoffs in the first round, what do you think they should have done? Disregarded all the results and just put the teams in from the South that you like? I don't understand what's going on here.
No, not at all.
What's the result? What's the
teams,
resolution to your problem?
Some of the teams, they got to build parameters on how you get into the playoff, number one. And putting Boise State in there, especially with a first-round bye, is the biggest bunch of bull crap I've ever seen in my life. So what they're going to have to do is put parameters in there. And number one, did the committee screw up and put some teams in there that shouldn't have been there? You damn right they did. And
what is your solution to the problem, Brad? What should they have done last year? What is your solution to the problem from last year? What should they have done that they didn't do that you got mad about? What do you think they should have done?
Number one, they should have left Indiana out because they didn't play a
team. Who, Brad?
Indiana. They should have left them out because they had no top 25 wins. They had one game on the schedule, and they got the damn brakes beat off of them. Put in Ole Miss.
Okay. So if that is your solution, Brad, if that is your solution, then what you are saying is that the games that everybody plays don't matter, and we should just put teams in from the SEC, even after it's been proven that those teams weren't very good.
No, there should be parameters built in, like strength of schedule should be built in. Who you play.
And that should matter more than wins and losses?
Who you lose to should matter. And let me tell you, who was the college
Indiana lost to the national champion and the national champion running up.
Really? You go, that guy? No. That guy didn't get it all wrong. The committee didn't get it all wrong. They put teams in that playoff that other teams could have been in that would have performed better. And that's
you're creating hypothetical SEC matchups when we have unequivocal proof that the SEC did not stack up against the other conferences this year. So we're not going to play that game.
For the first time in what, 9 or 10 years?
And that's literally the reason why you can't use hypothetical matchups to make the bracket.
Has won 14 out of the last 25 natties have come from the SEC. Let me also remind you.
You think you're educating me on the numbers of what's going on in our sport? Like I don't know that?
It sounds
like is that what you think?
Some education, Ari.
Yeah. You know? So what you're saying is that the hypotheticals for the first time in 15 years didn't bear out the way that you did, but we should have still done it this year, is what you're saying?
I'm not going to say the final answer wasn't answered. I think it was, but there are other teams that warranted being in that playoff that didn't get in because the committee does not have a formula to judging the talent and they're putting teams in here that recruit.
It sounds like your formula is that you don't want to play the games.
No, that's not
you want to recruit well.
Put the right teams in. Hey, and the existential threat.
You wanted to put a 3-loss team that.
Do you? If I could hold on, guys. If I could possibly slow down, Brad. Let's slow down here. I think we've exhausted that question. And what I want to know, Brad, beyond that specific question, you seem to have a real beef with Ari Wasserman. You mention his name kind of funny. So I'm going to let you ask Mr. Wasserman a question since he asked you one. Go ahead, ask him a question.
Sure.
I mean, you know something? Here's the thing. We know you're a beat writer for the Ohio State at one time in your career.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you still got that red mustache right above your lip where you drank all the Kool-Aid for the Big Ten. And I'm just telling you right now, you need to wash it off.
The teams in question here aren't even in the Big Ten. Outside of Indiana, it was a 1-loss team. What are you talking about?
No, the Ohio State. Yeah, you're pro Little 10, and that's the way you are. Or you're pro Little 10, and you're going to beat them up. And then you're going to sit there and try to pull us down. Well, we're not believing that smoke because
hey Brad.
Did you watch the Super Bowl, Ari? 33 players were from the SEC versus the Big Ten with 21. Did you see that? We're sick and tired of being the Little 10's farm system down here.
Can I ask you just a question that doesn't even have to do with college football and just in general? Who do you think is more likely to be biased on this topic? The person who listens to the Finebaum show every day and is sitting at the Georgia pullover, or the guy who went to Arizona and lives in Dallas?
Or you're in SEC country, and when you make a statement
Okay.
that
Hey,
calls
Brad, would you mind, Brad, the judges, Brad, the judges have asked me to require you to answer that question.
There's going to be a bias, no matter what part of the country you're from. There's a Big Ten bias up there. There's a SEC bias down here.
But Brad, what Ari is trying to say is that he is not, he's not wearing Ohio State paraphernalia right now. You are. He's claiming that he's an objective reporter for a respected publication.
He is.
You're a fan. So answer the question.
There is SEC bias down here in the South. I'll admit that, but I think he won't admit it. He won't admit it, but he's got some bias from working up there for Ohio State. He knows he's pro Big Ten. You can tell by the way he writes stuff.
The thing that is interesting, though, Brad, is that like I'm pro college football, and the reason why I got so bent out of shape. And here's the thing: I think a lot of the things that you're saying we don't even fundamentally disagree on. Like in theory, do I think that Ole Miss had better players than Indiana this year? Absolutely, I'm with you, pal. Like you're not telling me something I don't know. But my point is if you go through a season and then disregard the results because a team didn't play the same schedule through no fault of their own, especially when you're talking about a Big Ten team, then what you're doing is you're alienating 85% of the entire fans of the sport. So if you want to put Ole Miss in over Indiana, which is what your solution was, then what you're saying is that Indiana going 11-1 is not good enough in your eyes. And you want to put a team in that lost 3 games, including to one of the bottom half teams in the SEC by 100. So there's no merit system to your system. And if you want to do that, then you're going to disenchant a large portion of the country.
It's called strength of schedule.
Strength of schedule is a metric. It's not the results. We keep the scoreboard and a record for a reason.
It matters. It matters how many 4-stars and 5-star
players you got. Brad, let me interrupt and let me state this because Brad, slow down. Brad. I am not judging. The people in the other room are scoring this, and they tell me that you are currently behind Ari. So I'm gonna get out of the way. You've got a chance to win this debate, and go ahead so we're going to allow you, Brad, to have the stage.
My closing argument is this. Paul Finebaum, you're not an existential threat to college football. You're the godfather, and all you want, all we want is fair competition. We don't want another Georgia TCU. And either you have the players or you don't. Indiana, Boise State, SMU, they were in the playoff. They don't have the players. They don't have a chance. So, Ari, unicorns and rainbows. We play football down here, man. Write children's book.
Yeah, I guess you don't want 80% of college football teams to be a part of the system, and that's okay. That's your prerogative. It's fine. I don't stand on that. I'm not a Big Ten homer. I'm a college football homer, and I care about all the fans across the country. So, blowouts happened in the SEC. Unfortunately, from your standpoint, was the on the losing end on a few of those this year. So, I think that if you want to create a system and you want to live in a world where there are no blowouts in the first round of the playoff, then you might want to find a different sport because that's college football. It happens at all levels. It happened in the Super Bowl, and it's going to continue to happen. And Ole Miss, in my opinion, was one of the most talented teams in the country. They invested heavily in that roster, and they did not do their part in order to be considered a worthy candidate to be into the field, and they weren't. And it's a merit-based system, and the teams that did their part by winning the games that they played, by the scoreboard that we keep track of in the record books, were the ones who were rewarded with a spot in the playoff, and the ones who weren't. And also the last thing I want to say, Brad, too, is that the SEC is also rewarded with 1 game extra margin of error. Like if Alabama would have been 10-2 or Ole Miss would have been 10-2, they would have gone over those teams. But they didn't even do enough to have their 1 extra game of margin of error, because when you have a strength of schedule that's really good, then your quality wins bolster your resume and forgive a loss. If Indiana would have been 10-2, they would have been unequivocally out. So even with the advantage of being able to lose an extra game, 2 SEC teams came up short. So I don't know what you want, but if you just want to put teams in like that, then you're insane. It's not the way the world works.
That's a bullcrap answer, Ari. Indiana, you have to play your way in the playoff. It's bullcrap. You have to play.
Okay, guys, I'm gonna have to interrupt and listen. Brad, you're welcome to challenge Ari. The final score, according to the guys in the other room, Randy and I are not part of this. 12-5. Danny Sheridan's opening line was 6.5, so Ari covered. Ari,
Come on, man. Are you serious?
Because
Ari.
you're talking in fantasy land, and I'm talking with facts. So whether or not you
I'm
want to
talking with
acknowledge what I'm
facts.
saying is
I'm
factual.
talking with facts too. I got facts.
Wait,
How about 14 out of
yeah.
the last 25 natties of SEC, baby?
Yeah, I
Let's
agree.
go.
The SEC is usually the best
Let's go,
conference.
baby.
And
We're
unfortunately
not
for
going
you
nowhere.
and the people who live in the South have to understand that the sport has changed quite a bit the last few years. I don't know if you've noticed, but the teams aren't as deep at the top and there's less parity in there. So, yeah,
That's what happens when you can buy
2006
our
LSU
players.
was awesome. 2019 Alabama was awesome.
Okay, well, I feel I'm compelled to step in
Yeah.
here. Ari, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, no problem.
Brad,
Thanks, Ari. Thanks, Paul.
Andy
Thanks,
Staples
Brad.
will
We might have you on ours.
post-game comments.
Okay.
And we go to the break right now.
Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, Mr. Paul.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
We welcome you back. Pretty entertaining conversation there. We'll get your reaction to that and everything else as we head back to the calls and start with Chris in South Carolina.
Hey, Paul, to be honest, before I get started, Paul, I want your honest opinion. Who won the fight?
Yeah, I tell you what, I was really impressed with Brad from Macon. What about you, Randy? Yeah, I mean, I know the control room did not agree, and I made a vow to stay out of it, but I would have scored Brad the winner.
Man, I tell you what, Paul, I was proud of Brad, man. I was proud of him, man. He came in there and hit him in the uppercut.
man, I mean,
he was throwing punches like Tyson.
I mean, Wasserman was stumbling that first couple of minutes.
Man, and you gave the man a fair fight, Paul. But I tell you, I'm Brad. Listen, man,
I would demand a rematch, frankly.
Hey, hold on. Brad, I got to go back to the gym a little bit, man. Give us about 2 months, Paul. Give us about 2 months, man. But I'm going to tell you like this right here.
And by the way, we liked
it.
it so much from now on. If you don't like a guest, just challenge them. We'll settle it right here.
Hey, I'm telling you right now, I want Stephen A. Smith. Book the fight.
That's
I want
not
him.
the easiest guy to land. I mean, he's running for president, so.
Hey, running for president. Hey, Paul, but I'm going to tell you, Brad, you did a good job, man. Hey, but one thing about Squirrel, Paul, what I got to say about Squirrel, man, he do tell it like it is, man. He don't cut nobody no slack, but he do tell it like it is. But one thing about that Squirrel, he got a real problem with these pony leaguers. But Squirrel, guess what? We ain't going nowhere. We ain't going nowhere, man. Sit back and pick your retirement home out. Buy you one next to Paul since that's your best friend. And the only difference between me and you, Squirrel, I know Paul ain't my friend. You have a nice day, Paul.
John is up next.
Hey, Paul, how are you doing today?
John?
Hey, Paul, I think Brad is a total embarrassment, not only with this recent call today with Mr. Wasserman, but just the show. I don't know why you have this clown on here. I mean, you know, his presentation skills are like a third grader, the way he rants and raves and sticks his tongue out and sticks his chin out and wears that stupid cap. You kind of wonder where this guy's coming from if he's half looped at 3:30 in the afternoon Eastern time, but I'm not surprised. So, I mean, his debate is a bunch of hooey. And, Brad, you're an absolute disgrace to the show. Even though I'm an SEC fan, the young man that talked facts and figures and about the way the quote-unquote system works right now in the NCAA. And so, young man, if you think you can come on this show and browbeat the powers that be and the way things are, you need to wake up and smell the coffee. So with that said, my recommendation to you and your producers and the staff and the establishment, Paul, that I always talk about is why don't you censor this clown for Macon County Macon County, Georgia, because you're a jack.
Why don't we take a break here after that call? Andy Staples is joining us in just a few minutes. Brad hitting Ari with Stars Matter as a key plank in his platform proves Brad hasn't done his homework here. Ooh. We'll get, even though Andy is friends with Ari and our colleague, we'll still get his comments and then more of yours after that.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
We're back, and still a lot of national reaction coming in for the big battle between Ari Wasserman and Brad. So let's check out one of the great minds in college football, Andy Staples, joining us. So, Andy, I'm really eager to get your ringside view of what we just got through watching.
I got to slightly disagree with the guys in the control room, Paul, because I don't think Ari covered the spread. I think Brad covered and Ari won. Just a narrow victory. Okay. Brad hitting Ari with the Stars Matter as a plank in the platform was that Brad didn't do his homework on that one, because Ari's been hitting me with the Stars Matter pretty much since I've known him. Well, that team has more 5 stars. Okay, Ari, but they also play, and sometimes it matters how much older they are. Sometimes it matters how much better coached they are. But yeah, so Brad hitting Ari with his own argument probably was not going to faze Ari very much, and it didn't. But here's what I respect and love about Brad. I don't like John from St. Louis and his Richard Nixon mask messing with Brad here. It's, by the way, Macon's in Bibb County. It's not Macon County. Have some respect for Little Richard's hometown. Brad kept coming. Brad never stopped. Brad hit Ari with a 2x4 out of the gate, called him an existential threat to college football, and kept right on going. Even though Ari was kind of picking him apart in some spots, Brad didn't stop. Because I've had guys come up to me in the bar or in a restaurant and want to have the debate about something that we were talking about on the show or something I was writing about. And after 30 seconds, most of them are like, "Oh, you got to go. That's a good point, Mr. Staples. Don't do that. Keep coming." Like, Brad never gave up.
And Andy, what about that one line that I thought was the most memorable moment when Brad hit him back with, "You got a little red mustache."
You know, a little red mustache. Yeah. I'm stealing that.
I almost gave Brad but they didn't let me choose, but I would have given Brad the fight on that one alone.
Yeah, I think Ari was a little skittish about personally insulting Brad, because I think he didn't want to get down in the mud. But I will say, if there's a round 2, which there very well might be on our own show, because Brad and I have been in contact, but if there's a round 2, I might tell Ari, "Hey, listen, you may want to start hitting below the belt too. This may be just one of those fights. This may be no holds barred. This may be."
Andy, I don't need to tell you this. You were weaned on this program. I mean, this is the Finebaum Show. There are no rules.
No, I know. I mean, listen. I know what some of your callers have done in their past. I mean, there definitely are no rules.
No.
And so I appreciate you giving them the venue to make this happen, because I think Brad has a future in this business if he wants it, because people don't understand how difficult it is to argue with somebody for 10 straight minutes on television, because eventually you get tired, you run out of points, all of these things happen, and Brad never stopped. Like, he's the defensive end whose motor never stops.
No, I think Brad can walk away proud. I mean, he
100%.
They finally, in the bar, they just had to pull him off, because Ari was like, "If you keep pushing me, I'm going to kill this guy." But
that is the first time Ari has ever been compared to that guy in the bar, by the way.
Yeah, I take a lot of points away from Ari for the reason that you laid out. I mean, he thought this was Marquis of Queensberry rules. I mean, he was being respectful of his opponent.
He's worried about parliamentary procedure.
Yeah.
No, you got to get down in the muck.
But I do give Ari credit, though, for being able to stand up after that first shot.
It was great. And when Ari kept saying, who, name a team, I was worried Brad was not going to name a team. It went a solid minute and a half before Brad came with Ole Miss, which I'm glad he did, because that's the one I think that you should pick between the three of Alabama, Ole Miss, or South Carolina in that argument, because Ole Miss, and I realize it's all revisionist history now, but at least Ole Miss came through and crushed somebody in the bowl game. But why Ari didn't come back with, why don't you just beat Kentucky at home or beat Florida?
Yeah, that was.
I don't know why he didn't say that, because the specifics are what really hinders Brad's arguments there.
Yeah, well, the next time there will be an Alabama fan in the ring, and we won't have as much demeanor. And I mean, I've already been hit up by a number of people who want who want the next shot. So on another subject, because we've exhausted that one, just as we're making this hard transition to spring, I keep being told that the spring is not what it's supposed to be, that nobody wants to play these spring games. What are you hearing, Andy?
Oh, they don't. They don't. It's one, Matt Rule from Nebraska said you put it on TV, it just gives people a chance to scout you. And because you think about it, Paul, what is a spring game? The stars rarely ever play in the spring games. It's a lot of the younger guys and the developmental guys. And I get it if you're a coach, how you don't want to just have your developmental guys out there on tape for the whole world to see when the portal's about to open again. I actually wrote about this a few months ago, Paul. I said that the solution is right there for them if they want to do it. Because everybody keeps saying, well, we got to close the portal windows here, and we got to move when the portal window happens. Well, the only way you're going to move when the portal window happens is you either move when the semester starts, which you're not changing the entire American educational calendar, so you're not doing that, or you move spring practice. Have some OTAs like the pros do, start them in late May, early June, so you do all your roster construction in the spring. So in that case, don't open the portal in December. Open the portal in January and just let it run through February. And that's the portal. Everybody moves who's going to move. And then you have your OTAs where everybody, like your new quarterback, gets to be with his team for all those practices, those 15 practices. Do that in May and June. It would work. And you probably aren't going to get sued over it because you're still opening the portal, allowing people to move. And also, and I know nobody ever thinks about this, but these are college students. Maybe they could finish the spring semester at their old school before they move to the new one.
Well said. Before you go, you told me you've been talking to Brad. So is there going to be a Brad appearance on your podcast?
We're in negotiations. He's expensive. I don't know how much you pay him, but golly, some of the demands, it's incredible.
We have a long roster of callers that are looking to get paid.
Listen, if Brad wants to start his own show too, I'm not kidding. He's fun. He's fun. Give him some more reps on the mic. And yes, I would love to have Brad on our show. I'm gonna get in touch with him. I think Ari and I have a little vacation coming up, but when we come back, first of all, I think Ari needs to recover. Like he may need to go to Cabo to recover from Brad. But when we come back, I think I'm just going to have Brad batter him again on our show.
Yeah, I was watching off camera the end of the match, and Brad hit him again as he was leaving.
I just want a shot next time, though, and we'll set this up on my show. I wanted a shot of you as this was going on, just like a tennis match. Just what?
The line that we all fell over on was the mustache line.
It was tremendous, and I want to know from Brad. And this is, I don't want to get into his stagecraft too much. I want this to be natural and from the earth. But did he just come up with that, or was that written down beforehand? Like I need to know these things, because if he just came up with that, bravo.
Yeah. I think you can see what your off-season looks like here on the Andy Staples Show. Andy, many thanks. Enjoy your time off. We will catch up with you soon. The final recap on the big match right here. We'll get your reaction and more of your phone calls. A few more guests will be dropping by as well. We're coming up back.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
We continue, and let's check in with Logan up next. Hello, Logan. Go right ahead.
Governor Paul Finebaum, how are you doing today, buddy?
I am ready to serve.
Yes, sir. We got you going, future governor. Hey, great job today from Brad. I thought he did a good job. Wasserman was a little bit slick though, but I think the passion was coming from Brad, so I have to give him. I think he covered the spread.
Yeah, I do too. I don't know what the guys in the other room were doing, but that's not my problem.
I don't know. But can you imagine? You should have every guest have to deal with callers. Could you imagine Griff versus Legend?
Oh my!
How awesome would that be?
Listen, we don't condone abuse on this show, so we're not going to let Legend anywhere near Griff.
You don't condone a massacre. I think you've already beat him up enough. I'm sure the callers could probably do a pretty good job on that, though. But so what did you think? Who do you think won the battle, well, Paul?
I like Brad. What about you, Randy? Yeah. We both voted for Brad, and nobody listened to us.
Oh man. Well, good job, Brad. Hey, maybe you could get Jim on versus anybody. Jim versus. Oh God, who could we get, Jim?
Well, Jim versus really pretty much anyone would be a challenge.
Anybody, yeah.
Hey, Logan, thank you very much. We have the first Zoom appearance from one of the epic callers in the show's history. Who do you think it is? Daryl is up next. Oh my goodness, look at you.
What's going on?
You got it down.
So we could have what would it be? Like Jim versus Jim? I mean, Jim would have to show his face to come on Zoom, and I don't see that happening. I mean, what do you think?
I don't either. And by the way, I don't know why. I've talked to him. I know you probably have talked to him too before, but he just does not want to be a party to, I guess, anybody knowing who he is.
Yeah, I don't get it. I mean, I don't get that. Anyway, let me ask you this. Okay, to Ari, okay, so if Big Ten better than the SEC, or is that the record that matters? Because if you go sit there and say record matters and strict the schedule, I mean, if you go say Indiana's better or the Big Ten's better, then Indiana should have a harder strict the schedule, right? You would think.
Yeah, I didn't really understand Wasserman's answer there because I mean I just don't think Indiana proved the thing all year except having a ridiculously easy schedule.
And I don't think it's SEC bias. I think if Alabama and Indiana would have played, I think Vegas would have had Bama favored.
Yeah, I mean, I think the following teams would have beaten Indiana: Alabama, South Carolina, Ole Miss, and we maybe could have gone deeper into the SEC for a couple that could have beaten them as well. I'm not talking about Tennessee or Georgia or Texas. I mean, that's a foregone conclusion.
You know, and he says, you know, what all SECs, you want it to be SEC heavy for the playoff. Well, let me say it like this. Okay, in college football, I've been on the West Coast. I lived on the West Coast. I lived down in California. Yeah, I do want it to be SEC heavy because this is where all the passion for college football resides in the South. I mean, you go up north, you can get it in Ohio, okay? You can get it in Michigan, but you're not going to get it in Pennsylvania. Not like you get it in Alabama, not like you get it in Georgia, not like you get it in Florida. You're not going to get it in Oregon. You're not going to get it anywhere up north or out west like it is in the South. So I think, you know, until that fan base can get on track to being more like what we are down here, then yeah, I think that you know, we deserve to you know, I think we deserve a little bias in the conversation. But look here, Paul, would you agree? Okay, if they're gonna give buys, okay, which I'm all about that, that's fine. But wouldn't it be better if the top 4 teams in the country got a bye instead of the top 4 conference champions? And it could end up being the same 4 teams. But I think that would eliminate maybe some of the blowouts if they just went with the top 4 teams in the country. Would you have an issue with that?
No, I wouldn't. I mean, I think the flaw in Brad's argument had to do with Boise State because, I mean, they were grandfathered in because of the convoluted nature of getting this thing on the table. But, yeah, I mean, I think that would be a good way of doing it.
Yeah, I think the Boise State thing, they had to do it like that because the deal wouldn't have happened.
Right.
Right. Okay. So that's just, you can change about that. But you know what, Paul? Okay. When we went from 4, we had 4-team playoff. We went to 12. What did everybody say? Okay. If you don't get in the 12-team playoff, you can't complain. People still complain. If they go to 16, you're going to still have people that's going to complain, that's not going to get in. It's never going to be perfect, okay? I don't think there's a such thing as a perfect system to determine who the 12 best or 14 best or 16 best teams are in college football. It's impossible. I would say we've come a long way. Remember back when BYU won the national title, won the Holiday Bowl many years
sure
ago?
I do.
I mean, so at least we're making
They beat
major
a
progress.
6-6 Michigan team.
Absolutely. So we've made major progress than what it was in the past. It's never going to be a perfect system, but I would, and let me say one more thing. I would like to see an SEC Big Ten matchup. I mean, if you're going to put, okay, if you go Georgia, Ohio State, if they want to say Ohio State would have beat us this year, that's fine. But let's go school by school, and I guarantee you, when it's all said and done, the SEC will win more games than the Big Ten will. I really believe that. We're still the powerhouse. We won 13 out of the last 26 national titles. We've had what? How many schools win a national title in those years? 5 or 6? Auburn, LSU, Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee. I mean, that's 6 right there off the top of my head. The Big Ten has had two. Ohio State and Michigan. That's it in the last 26 years. The SEC's had 6. Last time I checked, 6 was greater than 2. So SEC, I mean, we're still the dominant program, our conference in college football, Paul, and that's just how it's going to be. And let me say one more quick thing about the new callers like that judge. You know what? You got to earn your stripes on this show, okay? You just can't come in here and just think you're going to step off in here and become some big time. It don't work that way. You have to earn your stripes on your show just like everybody else has, just like I had to, like our man has to. We can go on and on down the list. But so and it comes with some wear and tear. It's not an easy thing to do. It can be done, but don't come in here looking for all this glamour and glory right off the bat. That ain't the way it works. That ain't. I mean, it ain't. Well, at least I don't think that's the way it works. It ain't the way it used to work. We are ESPNized a little bit. But hey, Paul, it's great chatting with you. Go Dogs. See you.
That was a great Zoom call. So it's good to. Well done, Daryl. Appreciate it. Why don't we take a short break here? We've had the Wasserman Brad matchup. Zim's by here in a few minutes to give us some headlines, a little basketball conversation later on, and more of your phone calls.